I stared at my father across the kitchen table, his words echoing in my head like a curse I couldn't shake. Elena, sweetheart, there's something I need to tell you. You're adopted. The coffee mug in my hand suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. 32 years of my life. And this was how I found out? Over breakfast, like he was commenting on the weather? But that wasn't even the worst part. No. The worst part came exactly 30 seconds later when he cleared his throat and said, "Now that you know the truth, I need to ask you something important. I need a kidney, and you're my best match." How do you process information like that? How do you wrap your mind around the fact that the man who raised you, who taught you to ride a bike and walked you down the aisle at your wedding, just dropped 2 life-altering bombs in the span of a minute? And the way he said it, so casual, so matter-of-fact, like he'd been planning this conversation for years. "What do you mean I'm adopted?" I managed to whisper, my voice barely audible. My hands were shaking now, and I had to set the mug down before I dropped it. Dad, could I even call him that anymore? Leaned back in his chair with this expression I'd never seen before. Cold. Calculating. Like he was studying my reaction to see how much he could get away with. "Your birth mother was my sister, Catherine. She died when you were 2, and your father, your real father, he couldn't handle raising you alone. So we took you in." "Catherine?" I repeated. "Aunt Catherine? The one in all those family photos? The one you said moved to Oregon and never visited." "She never moved anywhere, Elena. She's buried in Riverside Cemetery, about 10 minutes from here." The room started spinning. Everything I thought I knew about my life was crumbling in real time. All those family gatherings where I felt slightly out of place, all those comments about how I looked nothing like my parents, all those times I wondered why I felt like an outsider in my own family, it all made horrible sense now. But then his words sank in deeper. "You said I'm your best match. How do you even know that?" He pulled a manila folder from the counter behind him. Had he prepared this whole conversation? And slid it across the table. Inside were medical records, test results, compatibility charts. My name was on half of them. "I've been having kidney problems for about 6 months, he said, like he was discussing lawn maintenance. "Got tested and my doctor suggested we test family members. You came back as a perfect match." Without my permission? The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. "You ran medical tests on me without my knowledge?" "It was just a simple blood draw, when you came in for your physical last year. Dr. Morrison is an old friend. Asked him to run a few extra tests while he was at it." My mind raced back to that appointment. I'd felt dizzy afterward, more than usual after a blood draw. I'd mentioned it to the nurse, and she'd said sometimes they need extra vials for comprehensive screening. I'd trusted them. I'd trusted him. "So let me get this straight," I said, standing up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. "You've known I was adopted my entire life. You've been lying to me about my mother being dead, about who I really am, about everything. And now you're telling me because you need something from me. Because you need a part of my body." "Elena, don't be dramatic. You're still our daughter. We raised you, we love you. This doesn't change anything between us." "Doesn't change anything?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Dad, this changes everything. How can you not see that?" He reached across the table like he was going to take my hand, but I pulled away. "Sweetheart, I know it's a lot to process, but I'm sick. Really sick. Without a transplant, I have maybe 2 years." And there it was. The guilt trip. The manipulation. Even in this moment, when my entire world was falling apart, he was making it about him. Making me the villain if I didn't immediately agree to give him a piece of myself. "Where's Mom in all this?" I asked. "Does she know you're telling me now?" His face shifted slightly, and I caught something that looked like guilt flickering in his eyes. "Your mother thinks we should have told you years ago. She wanted to tell you when you got married, but I thought it would be better to wait until we needed to." "Until we needed to?" "Not until I was ready. Not until it was the right time for me. Until they needed something from me. So this whole conversation, this whole reveal, it's not because you think I deserve to know the truth about my life. It's because you need my kidney." He didn't answer, but he didn't need to. The silence said everything. I spent the first 24 years of my life thinking I was Elena Martinez, daughter of Robert and Linda Martinez, middle child between my older brother Miguel and younger sister Sophia. I had dad's stubborn streak and mom's laugh, or so everyone always told me. I was the one who got decent grades without trying too hard, the one who played violin badly but with enthusiasm, the one who always felt like I was watching my family from the outside looking in. Now I understand why. Growing up, there were always little things that didn't quite add up. Miguel and Sophia both had dark hair and brown eyes like our parents, while I was blonde with green eyes. "You got the recessive genes," Mom would say whenever someone commented on it. I believed her because why wouldn't I? When you're a kid, your parents are the ultimate authority on everything, especially your own existence. But there were other things too. The way conversations would stop when I walked into rooms. How family stories never seemed to include me, even from when I was supposedly old enough to remember. The way certain relatives would look at me with this mixture of pity and discomfort that I could never quite understand. I remember being 12 and finding a photo album tucked away in Mom's closet while looking for Christmas presents. Most of the pictures were of Miguel and Sophia as babies and toddlers, but there were almost none of me until I was around 3 years old. When I asked Mom about it, she got flustered and said something about a house fire destroying our early photo albums. But Miguel had plenty of baby pictures, and he was only 2 years older than me. The biggest red flag looking back was how they handled my medical history. Every time I had to fill out forms for school physicals or college health services, Mom would hover over me, telling me what to write. No family history of diabetes, no heart problems, no cancer. She was always very specific about it, like she'd memorized the answers. I thought she was just being helpful. What I didn't know was that she was lying about everything. The truth was sitting in that manila folder my father slid across the table. My real medical history, my real family tree, my real genetic predispositions, everything I should have known about myself for 32 years. Catherine Martinez wasn't my aunt who moved away. She was my mother, who died of complications from lupus when I was 2 years old. My real father was a man named David Chen, who'd apparently struggled with addiction and couldn't care for me after Catherine died. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked Dad after I'd spent 20 minutes reading through the papers, my hands shaking with every page. Why lie about all of it? He was washing dishes now, his back to me, like this was just another ordinary morning. "We wanted you to feel like you belonged. We didn't want you to feel different or unwanted." But I did feel different. I always felt different. And now I know why. "Elena, we gave you a good life. We gave you everything we gave Miguel. And Sophia. We never treated you any differently." That wasn't true, and we both knew it. Miguel got Dad's vintage baseball card collection when he turned 18. Sophia got Mom's engagement ring when she got married. I got a savings bond and a pat on the head. They always said they were still deciding what family heirloom I'd get, but now I understood there wasn't one meant for me because I wasn't really family. "What about Catherine's things?" I asked. "Did she leave anything for me?" Dad finally turned around, and for the first time that morning, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. Catherine didn't have much. She was young when she died, and most of her belongings went to pay for medical bills. Most of her belongings? "Elena, this isn't important right now. What's important is that we need to schedule your surgery as soon as possible. My kidney function is declining faster than the doctors expected." There it was again. Every time I tried to learn something about my real mother, about my actual history, he steered the conversation back to what he needed from me. Like my whole existence was just a backup plan for his medical emergencies. "I need time to process this," I said, standing up and grabbing my purse. "I can't just pretend this conversation didn't happen and immediately agree to major surgery." "Elena, wait." His voice had a sharp edge now, the tone he used to use when I was a teenager trying to stay out past curfew. "This isn't a decision you can take your time with. Every day we wait puts me at more risk. And every day you waited to tell me the truth put me at risk of never knowing who I really am." I was almost to the door when he said something that stopped me cold. "Your mother would have wanted you to help family." I turned around slowly. "Which mother, Dad? The one who lied to me for 32 years, or the one you never let me know existed?" He didn't have an answer for that. I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning with questions I didn't even know how to begin answering. Who was David Chen, and was he still alive? What was Catherine like? Did I have other relatives I'd never met? Did Miguel and Sophia know the truth? How long had everyone been lying to me? But underneath all those questions was a bigger, more terrifying thought. What else don't I know about my own life? I called my husband Marcus as soon as I got home, my hands still shaking as I dialed his number. He was in a meeting, but when I told him it was urgent, he stepped out to take the call. Elena? What's wrong? You sound terrible. Marcus, I need you to come home.
Right now.
I just found out I'm adopted, and my dad wants my kidney. There was a long pause. I'm sorry, what? I broke down crying right there on the phone, trying to explain everything that had happened that morning. Marcus left work immediately and found me sitting on our kitchen floor, surrounded by the papers from Dad's manila folder, trying to piece together a life I'd never known I'd lived. Babe, this is insane, he said, sitting down next to me and pulling me into his arms. Are you okay? I mean, obviously you're not okay, but are you processing this? I don't know how to process this. Everything I thought I knew about myself is wrong. And the way he told me, Marcus, it wasn't because he thought I deserved to know. It was because he needs something from me. Marcus picked up one of the medical reports, scanning it with the careful attention he usually reserved for his legal briefs. These test results are from 8 months ago. Elena, he's known about this compatibility for 8 months and didn't tell you. What does that mean? It means this whole thing was calculated. He didn't tell you when he found out you were a match. He waited until his condition got worse, and he actually needed the surgery. The reality of that hit me like a physical blow. For 8 months, my father had known that I was adopted, that my entire understanding of my identity was built on lies, and that I was medically compatible to save his life. And he'd said nothing. He'd sat through family dinners, birthday parties, holidays, watching me live in ignorance while he planned this conversation. I need to talk to Miguel and Sophia, I said. I need to know if they knew. But when I called Miguel, his reaction told me everything I needed to know. Elena, I'm so sorry, he said immediately before I'd even finished explaining what Dad had told me. I've been telling him for years that he needed to tell you the truth. Years? Miguel, how long have you known? I figured it out when I was in high school. I found some old papers in Dad's filing cabinet when I was looking for my birth certificate for college applications. I saw your adoption paperwork. My brother had known for over 15 years. 15 years of family gatherings where he watched me struggle with feeling like an outsider. 15 years of me making comments about not looking like anyone else in the family. 15 years of watching our parents lie to my face every single day. Why didn't you tell me? Dad made me promise. He said it would destroy the family if you found out, that you'd feel rejected and unwanted. He said it was better for everyone if you never knew. Better for everyone? Miguel, I had a right to know about my own life. I know that now. I've been trying to convince him to tell you, especially after you and Marcus started talking about having kids. I told him you needed to know your real medical history. Sophia's reaction was different, but equally devastating. She claimed she had no idea, but her shock felt performed, like she'd rehearsed it. And when I pressed her, she admitted that she'd always suspected something was off about my place in the family, but had never asked questions. I thought maybe you were Dad's kid from before he met Mom, she said, which was somehow worse than knowing the truth. She'd spent years thinking I was evidence of our father's infidelity rather than just asking direct questions about the inconsistencies she'd noticed. The worst part was calling Mom. She answered on the first ring, like she'd been waiting for my call. Elena, honey, how are you handling everything? You knew he was going to tell me today. It wasn't a question, and she didn't treat it like one. Yes, I knew. We talked about it last night. And you didn't think to warn me? You didn't think I deserved a heads up that my entire life was about to be turned upside down? Sweetheart, your father thought it would be better coming from him. He wanted to control the narrative. Control the narrative. Like my life was a story he was telling instead of a reality I was living. Mom, did you want to tell me sooner? She was quiet for a long time. I wanted to tell you when you turned 18. Then I wanted to tell you before your wedding. Then before you started trying to have children. But your father always said it wasn't the right time. And now it's the right time because he needs my kidney. Elena, that's not fair. We love you like our own daughter, because you are our daughter. The circumstances of how you came to us don't change that. But they do change things, Mom. They change everything. I had a right to know about my medical history, about my birth parents, about why I never felt like I fit in this family. I had a right to make my own decisions about my identity. You're being dramatic. Those 3 words hit me harder than anything else she could have said. Dramatic. Like my reaction to finding out my entire life was built on lies was somehow unreasonable. Like I was the problem for being upset about 32 years of deception. That night, Marcus and I sat up talking until almost 3 in the morning, trying to make sense of everything. But the more we talked, the more questions arose. Elena, there's something else we need to consider, Marcus said finally. If they lied about this for 32 years, what else might they have lied about? The next morning, I drove to Riverside Cemetery alone. I'd Googled Catherine Martinez the night before and found her grave listing online. Section C, row 14, plot 23. I brought flowers, white roses, because I had no idea what her favorites were. I had no idea about anything when it came to my real mother. The headstone was simple. Catherine Elena Martinez, beloved daughter and mother, 1970 to 1995. She'd been 25 when she died. Younger than I was now. And there, carved in stone, was proof that I'd been named after her. Elena wasn't some random name my adoptive parents had chosen. It was her middle name, the one piece of my mother they'd let me keep. I sat in the grass next to her grave and cried harder than I had since I was a child. Not just for her, but for all the conversations we'd never had, all the questions I'd never gotten to ask her, all the ways she might have understood me that no one else ever could. I wish I could have known you, I whispered to the headstone. I wish someone had told me about you. That's when I noticed the other flowers. Fresh ones, maybe a week old, carefully arranged in a small vase. Someone had been visiting Catherine's grave recently. Someone who cared enough to bring flowers and keep them maintained. I took a picture of the flowers and drove straight to the cemetery office. Excuse me, I said to the woman behind the desk. I'm trying to find information about who might be visiting my mother's grave. Catherine Martinez, Section C. The woman, whose name tag read Dorothy, looked at me with immediate sympathy. Oh, honey, are you Elena? David's been hoping you'd come by someday. David? My biological father. David Chin? He still visits here. Every week, for the past 25 years. He usually comes on Tuesdays around noon, brings fresh flowers and sits with her for about an hour. The man my adoptive father had described as an addict who couldn't handle raising me had been visiting my mother's grave every week for my entire life. How is he? I asked, not sure. I really wanted to know the answer. Dorothy smiled. David's good people. He got clean about 6 months after Catherine died, got his life together. He works as a counselor now, helps other people with addiction recovery. Always wondered about you. Always hoped you were doing well. Did he know I was adopted by the Martinez family? Oh yes, he stayed in touch with Robert and Linda for the first few years. He wanted to make sure you were being taken care of properly. But then they asked him to stop contacting them, said it was confusing for everyone involved. My adoptive parents had cut off contact with my biological father. They'd made the decision to erase him from my life completely, and they'd never told me he'd wanted to stay connected. Dorothy wrote down David's phone number and address. He's been hoping for this day for 30 years, she said. He never stopped loving you, honey. I called David from the cemetery parking lot, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Hello. Hi, is this David Chen? Yes, who's this? This is Elena.
Elena Martinez.
I think you're my father. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard him take a shaky breath.
Elena?
Oh my God. Elena, is it really you? Yes, it's me. I just found out yesterday that I was adopted. I'm at Catherine's grave right now. You're at Catherine's grave? His voice broke. She would be so proud of the woman you've become. I've followed your life from a distance, your college graduation, your wedding. Your parents send me a Christmas card every year with family photos. They do. You didn't know? Another lie. Another secret. My adoptive parents had been in contact with David all along, sending him updates about my life, letting him watch me grow up. From afar while telling me he'd abandoned me. David, can we meet? I have so many questions. Of course. Anywhere, anytime. I've been waiting for this call for 32 years. We met that afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. I recognized him immediately. I had his nose and his hands, features I'd never seen in anyone else until that moment. He was nervous, fidgeting with his coffee cup and apologizing every few minutes for things that weren't his fault. Elena, I want you to know that giving you up was the hardest decision I've ever made. But I was a mess back then, and Catherine made me promise that if anything happened to her, I'd make sure you went somewhere stable and loving. She knew she was going to die. The lupus was aggressive. The doctors told her she might not make it through your second birthday. She spent months planning what would happen to you if she didn't survive. David pulled out a worn photo album and slid it across the table. She made this for you. She wanted you to have it when you were old enough to understand. The album was full of pictures of Catherine pregnant with me, holding me as a baby, playing with me in the park. But more than that, it was full of letters. Letters she'd written to me for every birthday, every milestone, every moment she wouldn't be there to share. Your first day of school, David said, pointing to an envelope marked Elena's first day, age 5. Your 16th birthday. Your wedding day. Your first child. She wrote letters for all of it. I opened the one marked, when Elena learns the truth, with trembling hands. My dearest Elena, it began. If you're reading this, it means you've finally learned about me, and I hope it also means you've met your father, David. He loves you more than you'll ever know, and giving you up nearly destroyed him. But we both wanted you to have the stability and love that we couldn't provide. I couldn't finish reading it there in the coffee shop. I was crying too hard, and David was crying too, and other customers were starting to stare. She left other things too, David said quietly. Her jewelry, some books, a few family heirlooms. I've been keeping them safe for you all these years. Robert said she didn't leave anything, that everything went to pay medical bills. David's expression darkened. That's not true. Robert and Linda took most of her belongings when they took you, but they left some things with me. Said they'd tell you about them when you were older. How many lies could two people tell? How many ways could they erase someone's history and convince themselves it was for the greater good? 3 days later, I sat in Dr. Morrison's office with Marcus beside me, demanding answers. The same doctor who'd been treating our family for 15 years, who I'd trusted with my health and my medical history, who'd drawn my blood without my knowledge and tested it for kidney compatibility. Elena, I understand you're upset, Dr. Morrison said, adjusting his glasses nervously. But your father was very concerned about your reaction. He thought it would be easier if we handled the testing discreetly. Discreetly? You mean illegally? Marcus interjected. He'd done his research overnight and brought printouts of medical ethics guidelines. You can't run genetic tests on someone without their informed consent. You definitely can't share those results with third parties, even family members. Dr. Morrison's face flushed. It was just an expanded blood panel. Nothing invasive. That's not the point, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The point is that you've been complicit in lying to me about my own body, my own medical information, for months. Elena, your father is dying. I was trying to help save his life. By violating mine. I asked for copies of all my medical records, going back to childhood.
What I found was horrifying.
Every form that asked about family medical history had been filled out with false information. When I'd had genetic counseling before Marcus and I started trying to get pregnant, Dr. Morrison had provided fabricated family health records. Do you understand what this means? I asked Marcus that night, spreading the papers across our dining room table. We've been trying to have a baby for 2 years, and all the genetic counseling was based on lies. What if there are hereditary conditions I don't know about? What if there are things I could pass on to our children? Marcus picked up one of Catherine's medical records that David had given me. According to this, lupus runs in your biological family. That's something we should have known about. And look at this, I said, pointing to David's health information. Diabetes, heart disease, depression. All things that could affect me, could affect our future children. But Dr. Morrison told us I had no genetic predisposition for any of it. I called Dr. Morrison's office the next morning and demanded an appointment. When his receptionist tried to schedule me for the following week, I told her I'd be there at noon whether she put me on the calendar or not. Elena, please sit down, Dr. Morrison said when I stormed into his office. Let's discuss this calmly. There's nothing calm about this situation. You've been lying about my medical history for years. You've compromised my health care and potentially my future children's health care. And you did it all to help my father manipulate me. Your father was desperate. He's been on the transplant list for months, but the wait times are years. You're his only viable family match. I'm not his family. The words came out louder than I intended.
I'm adopted.
He lied to me about that too. And even if I were his biological daughter, that wouldn't give him the right to my organs. Dr. Morrison leaned back in his chair, looking suddenly older. Elena, I've known your family for 20 years. I delivered Sophia. I've treated all of you through countless illnesses. Robert is like a brother to me. And that's exactly the problem. You're not my doctor. You're his friend who happens to have a medical license. You've been prioritizing his needs over my rights as a patient. What do you want from me? I want you to understand that what you did was wrong. I want you to acknowledge that you violated my trust and my rights. And I want you to never contact me about donating my kidney to anyone, ever again. That evening, I got a call from Miguel. Elena, Dad's really sick. He collapsed at work today, and they had to take him to the hospital. I felt a stab of guilt, followed immediately by anger at myself for feeling guilty. Is he okay? He's stable now, but Elena, the doctors say, he needs the surgery soon. Like, within the next few months. Miguel, I can't do this right now. I'm still processing everything. I know, but Elena, he's our dad. Whatever he did wrong, whatever lies he told, he raised us. He loves us. He raised you. He loves you. I'm starting to realize I was just the backup plan. That's not true. Isn't it? Miguel, he kept me in the dark about my entire identity for 32 years. He violated my medical privacy. He's been manipulating me from the moment I was born. And now everyone expects me to just hand over a piece of my body because he finally decided to tell me the truth. Elena, please. I'm begging you. Just think about it. But I had been thinking about it. I'd been thinking about nothing else for days. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how deep the manipulation went. That night, I called David.
Elena?
Is everything okay? David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. When Catherine died, did Robert and Linda promise they'd let you stay in my life? There was a long pause.
Yes.
They said you'd always know about both of your parents, that they'd make sure you understood your history and your heritage. They promised I could see you regularly, that I could be part of your life as you grew up. And when did that change? When you were about 4. They called me and said it was too confusing for you, that you were asking too many questions about why you had 2 dads. They said it would be better for everyone if I stepped back. But you didn't want to. Elena, stepping back from your life was like stepping back from Catherine all over again. It nearly killed me, but they convinced me it was what was best for you. I hung up the phone and sat in our dark living room, thinking about 4-year-old me asking questions about my identity, about my family, about why things didn't make sense. And instead of answering those questions honestly, my adoptive parents had eliminated the person who could have answered them. They'd been controlling my narrative since I was a toddler. A week later, Sophia called me crying. Elena, you need to come to the house. Mom and Dad want to have a family meeting. About what? About the kidney situation. They've talked to a lawyer. My blood ran cold. What kind of lawyer? I don't know, but Elena, they're really upset. They keep saying you're being selfish and ungrateful. Mom keeps crying and saying she doesn't understand how she raised such a heartless daughter. I drove to my childhood home with Marcus, my stomach in knots. The house looked the same as always, the same beige siding, the same rose bushes Mom had planted when I was in high school, the same welcome mat that now felt like a lie. But when I walked through the front door, the atmosphere was completely different. Mom, Dad, Miguel, and Sophia were all sitting in the living room, along with a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Richard Henley, family attorney. "Elena," Dad said, his voice weaker than usual, but his eyes sharp. "Thank you for coming." "What's this about?" I asked, not sitting down despite Mom gesturing toward the empty chair they'd left for me. "Elena, sweetheart, we need to talk about your responsibilities to this family," Mom said. "Mr. Henley has helped us understand some things about adoption law and family obligations." Mr. Henley cleared his throat and opened a briefcase full of documents. "Ms. Martinez, your parents have invested significant resources in raising you over the past 30 years. They've provided housing, education, medical care, and emotional support. In many states, adopted children have a legal obligation to provide care for their adoptive parents in times of need." "Are you seriously threatening to sue me for not giving up my kidney?" I asked, looking around the room in disbelief. "We're not threatening anything," Dad said. "We're explaining your options. You can help your family willingly, or we can explore other avenues." "Other avenues?" Mr. Henley pulled out a thick folder. "Your parents have documented every expense related to your upbringing. Private school tuition, college costs, medical bills, housing, food, clothing. The total investment comes to approximately $340,000. I stared at him. "You're putting a price tag on raising me?" "We're explaining that your parents made significant financial sacrifices for your benefit," he said. "Sacrifices that create certain moral and potentially legal obligations." "Mom, are you hearing this?" I turned to her, hoping to see some sign that she understood how insane this was. "You're trying to bill me for being your daughter?" Mom's eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. "Elena, we gave you everything. We treated you like our own child. We never asked for anything in return, and now, when we need you most, you're abandoning us." "I'm not abandoning you. I'm trying to process the fact that you lied to me for 32 years. We protected you," Dad said. "We gave you a stable, loving home. We could have left you in foster care, but we didn't. We chose to raise you as our own. You chose to raise me as your backup kidney." The room went silent. Even Mr. Henley looked uncomfortable. "That's not true," Sophia said quietly. "Elena, that's not fair." "Isn't it?" "Sophia, when exactly did Dad find out his kidneys were failing?" "Mr. Henley, do you have that information in your files?" Mr. Henley shuffled through his papers. "According to the medical records, Mr. Martinez was first diagnosed with chronic kidney disease approximately 18 months ago." 18 months ago, I repeated. "And when did he first get tested for compatibility with family members?" "Approximately 14 months ago." "So for 14 months, he's known that I was a perfect match for kidney donation. And in all that time, he never told me I was adopted. He never told me about my real parents, my real medical history, nothing. The only reason I know now is because he needs my kidney." Miguel shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Elena, maybe the timing isn't great, but..." "The timing isn't great?" "Miguel, the timing reveals everything. This entire conversation, this entire revelation about my identity, only happened because Dad needs something from me. Not because he thought I deserved to know the truth about my life, not because it was the right thing to do, but because he needs my organs." "You're being dramatic again," Mom said, and there was that word. Dramatic. Their favorite way to dismiss any emotion I had that made them uncomfortable. "No, I'm being accurate. And you know what else I'm being? I'm being done." I stood up to leave, but Mr. Henley held up a hand. "Ms. Martinez, there's one more thing you should know. Your parents are considering contesting Catherine's will." I stopped dead. "What?" "Catherine left certain items to you in her will, jewelry, personal effects, some financial assets. Your adoptive parents have been managing those assets on your behalf until you came of age. However, given your unwillingness to help the family that raised you, They're questioning whether you deserve that inheritance. Those are my mother's things. Catherine left them to me. Catherine left them to Elena Martinez, Mr. Henley said with a cruel smile. But Elena Martinez, according to all legal documents, is the adopted daughter of Robert and Linda Martinez. If that relationship is severed, your claim to Catherine's belongings might be severed as well. I looked around the room at these people I'd called family for my entire life. Miguel wouldn't meet my eyes. Sophia was crying quietly. Mom looked like she was about to be sick.
And Dad.
Dad looked satisfied. So this is blackmail, I said quietly. This is negotiation, Mr. Henley replied. Give you my kidney, or lose the only connection I have left to my real mother. Elena, please, Mom whispered. We don't want it to be like this. We just want you to do the right thing. The right thing. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The right thing would have been telling me the truth 32 years ago. The right thing would have been letting David stay in my life. The right thing would have been giving me Catherine's letters and belongings when I turned 18. The right thing would have been respecting my autonomy and my right to make decisions about my own body. I headed toward the door, then turned back. You want to know what I think the right thing is now? I think the right thing is for me to walk away from all of you and never look back. I spent the next 2 weeks in what I can only describe as survival mode. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything except the growing realization that my entire life had been built on lies and manipulation. Marcus took time off work to stay with me, worried I might do something drastic. I wasn't suicidal, but I was empty, like someone had reached inside me and scooped out everything I thought I knew about myself. The phone calls started immediately. Miguel called twice a day, begging me to reconsider. Sophia sent long text messages about family loyalty and forgiveness. Even relatives I barely knew started reaching out, all with the same message. Dad was dying, and I was the only one who could save him. But the worst call came from my adoptive grandmother, my dad's mother, who was 93 and had always been my favorite relative. Elena Mija, she said in her shaky voice. I don't understand what's happening. Robert says you won't help him. Abuela, it's complicated. What's complicated about helping your father? He gave you everything, and now when he needs you, you turn your back on him. I realized then that they'd been telling everyone a different story. They weren't mentioning the decades of lies, the manipulation, the fact that I'd only learned about my adoption because Dad needed my kidney. They were painting me as the ungrateful daughter who was letting her father die out of spite. Abuela, did you know I was adopted? There was a long pause.
Sí, mija.
I knew. But you were always my granddaughter. Always part of our family. Did you know they never told me? Did you know I found out a week ago? Another pause, longer this time. Elena, that's not possible. You must have known. I didn't know. No one told me. And I only found out because Dad needs my kidney. I heard her sharp intake of breath. Elena, that can't be true. Robert wouldn't. Linda wouldn't. They would, Abuela. They did. After that call, the guilt became unbearable. How do you explain to a 93-year-old woman that her son is a manipulative liar? How do you destroy her faith in the family she's loved for decades? That night, I finally broke down completely. I called David, sobbing so hard I could barely speak. Elena, what's wrong? What's happened? I don't know who I am anymore, I cried. I don't know what's real, what's true, what I'm supposed to feel. Everyone thinks I'm a monster for not giving up my kidney, but they don't understand what it's like to find out your whole life was a lie. Elena, listen to me. You are not a monster. You are not obligated to give anyone your organs, regardless of your relationship to them. What they did to you is wrong, and you have every right to feel angry and betrayed. But what if he dies? What if I let him die and I have to live with that forever? Elena, your father's health is not your responsibility. His choices brought him to this point, and his choices are keeping him here. You didn't cause his kidney disease, and you're not obligated to cure it. But he raised me. He raised you on a foundation of lies. He kept you from your real parents, from your real history, from your real identity. He violated your medical privacy and manipulated you into finding out about your adoption only when it served his purposes. That's not love, Elena. That's control. David's words hit me like a physical blow, but they also brought a strange kind of relief. Someone finally understood. Someone finally saw the situation for what it really was. David, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Catherine would want me to give him my kidney?
He was quiet for a long time.
Elena, your mother was the most generous person I've ever known. She would have given anything to help someone she loved. But she also valued truth above everything else. She believed that love without honesty wasn't really love at all. So, what would she tell me to do? She would tell you to follow your heart, but to make sure you're making the decision based on what's right for you, not on guilt or manipulation or fear. She would tell you that your life belongs to you, not to anyone else. The next morning, I made a decision. I called Mr. Henley's office and scheduled a meeting. Ms. Martinez, he said when I arrived, I hope you've reconsidered your position. I have. I want to make a counteroffer. He raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. I want all of Catherine's belongings that were left to me in her will. I want the letters she wrote, the jewelry, the photos, everything. I want a written apology from Robert and Linda acknowledging that they lied to me about my adoption and my medical history. And I want them to agree to never contact me again. And in exchange? In exchange, I'll consider kidney donation. But on my terms, with my timeline, and with full transparency about the medical risks and recovery process. Mr. Henley looked skeptical. Your father's condition is deteriorating rapidly. He may not have time for extended negotiations. Then he should have told me the truth sooner. Ms. Martinez, I don't think you understand the gravity of the situation. I understand perfectly. For the first time in my life, I understand exactly what's happening. My adoptive father is dying, and everyone expects me to save him because he raised me. But he didn't raise me out of love. He raised me out of obligation and convenience. And now that I know the truth about my family, about my history, about the lies that have shaped my entire life, I'm not willing to make decisions based on guilt and manipulation anymore. I stood to leave, then turned back to him. Mr. Henley, you can tell Robert and Linda that I'll consider their request. But I'll consider it as Elena Chin, Catherine's daughter, not as Elena Martinez, their backup plan. 2 days after my meeting with Mr. Henley, I got a call from Miguel at 6 in the morning. Elena, Dad had a heart attack. He's in intensive care. I drove to the hospital with my heart pounding, not sure what I was hoping to find. When I arrived, the waiting room was full of relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all of them looking at me with a mixture of hope and accusation. Elena, thank God you're here, Aunt Rosa said, grabbing my hands. The doctors say his kidneys are shutting down. They moved him to the top of the transplant list, but it could still be months. Where are Mom and Miguel? In his room. Elena, Mija, he's been asking for you. I found them clustered around Dad's hospital bed. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him, gray and fragile with tubes and wires connecting him to various machines. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears.
Elena.
You came. How are you feeling? Like I'm dying. He tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. Elena, I need to say something to you. I need to apologize. Mom stepped forward. Robert, you don't need to. Yes, I do. His voice was weak, but determined. Elena, I handled this all wrong. I should have told you about Catherine years ago. I should have let David stay in your life. I should have given you her letters when you turned 18. Why didn't you? Because I was scared. I was scared you'd love them more than us. I was scared you'd leave us for your real family. But by lying to me, you guaranteed I'd leave. He nodded slowly. I know that now. Elena, I'm not asking for your kidney because I think I deserve it. I'm asking because I love you, and I'm hoping that maybe you still love me too. It was the first honest thing he'd said to me in months. Maybe in years. Dad, I do love you. But love isn't enough anymore. Trust is broken, and I don't know how to fix it. I know. But Elena, if you can find it in your heart to help me, I promise I'll spend whatever time I have left making things right. I sat with him for 20 minutes, holding his hand while he drifted in and out of sleep. When I left, I felt something I hadn't expected: clarity. That evening, I called David and asked him to meet me at Catherine's grave. I need to make a decision, I told him, sitting cross-legged in the grass next to her headstone. And I need to make it as Catherine's daughter, not as the Martinez family's obligation. David sat beside me and waited while I gathered my thoughts. If I give him my kidney, it's not because I owe him anything. It's not because he raised me or because family is supposed to help family. It's because a man is dying and I have the power to save him. Elena, are you sure? I'm sure that I want to make this decision from a place of strength, not from a place of guilt. I'm sure that I want to help him because it's what I choose to do, not because it's what's expected of me. And what do you choose? I pulled out one of Catherine's letters, the one marked "When Elena faces a difficult decision," and read it by the light of my phone flashlight. My dearest Elena, it said, if you're reading this, it means you're facing something hard, something that will test who you are and what you believe. Remember that the right choice is rarely the easy choice, but it's always the choice that lets you sleep peacefully at night. Choose with your whole heart, not just your head or your guilt. Choose what makes you proud to be my daughter. I looked up at David, then at Catherine's headstone. I choose to save his life, but I also choose to save my own. The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In that time, I had my own lawyer draw up an agreement. Robert and Linda would transfer all of Catherine's belongings to me immediately. They would provide a written apology acknowledging their deception. They would agree to family therapy sessions where we could work through the damage they'd caused. Most importantly, they would legally change my name back to Elena Chen, and they would publicly acknowledge David as my father. Elena, these terms are quite extensive, Mr. Henley said when he reviewed the agreement. Your parents are desperate. They might agree to anything right now.
Good.
Because I'm not desperate. I'm making a choice, and choices come with conditions. The morning of the surgery, David drove me to the hospital. We sat in the pre-op room together, and he held my hand while the nurses prepared me for anesthesia. Elena, I want you to know that I'm proud of you. Catherine would be proud of you too. For giving him my kidney?
No.
For taking control of your own story. The surgery went perfectly. When I woke up in recovery, the first person I saw was Marcus, followed by David. Then, hesitantly, Miguel and Sophia. How do you feel? Miguel asked. Like I just gave away a piece of myself to get back who I really am. Dad's doing well, Sophia said quietly. The kidney is working perfectly. Good.
I'm glad.
Elena, I want you to know that we understand now. We understand why you were angry, why you needed time. And we're sorry we didn't support you from the beginning. I nodded, but I didn't say it was okay. Because it wasn't okay, and it might never be okay. 3 months later, I sat in my new apartment, the one I'd bought with money from Catherine's inheritance that Robert and Linda had finally released, reading the last of my mother's letters. This one was marked, "When Elena becomes the woman I always knew she would be." My dearest daughter, it began. If you're reading this, it means you've grown into someone I can only dream about. Someone strong enough to stand up for herself, brave enough to make difficult choices, and wise enough to know the difference between love and manipulation. You are everything I hoped you would become, and I am so proud to be your mother. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the box with all the others. Then I picked up my phone and called David.
Hi, Dad, I said.
Want to have dinner tonight? I'd love that, Elena. I'd love that very much. 6 months later, Robert made a full recovery. We see each other occasionally at family gatherings, and he's kept most of his promises about therapy and honesty. But we're not close anymore, and we probably never will be. I don't regret giving him my kidney, but I also don't regret everything that happened afterward. Because sometimes saving someone else's life means you finally get to start living your own.